Welcome to The Color Line, an audio presentation of the Black Experience. Episode 1.
First time I realized I was Black, I was relatively young. This was in 3rd grade when I first moved from Newark, New Jersey to Livingston, New Jersey. Growing up in Newark, the area that I lived in was predominantly Black. The school that I went to was just like a couple of blocks away, and the majority of the students there were Black or Hispanic. So skin color and race wasn't really an issue. It definitely wasn't something that was lingering in my thoughts, or it wasn't something that I questioned. It wasn't until family moved to Livingston, which is very suburban. It is a predominantly Jewish community. I believe last time I checked, it was the most predominantly Jewish community in the United States, with the population being like 49 or 50% Jewish people living there. So, once again, I thought nothing of it up until I enrolled to the elementary school. I got there and I noticed that there were very little students who were Black or students that looked like me. Everyone was white. No one had, my hair texture or anything like that, and especially I was the newer kid. Usually in Livingston, people kind of just grew up together, so kids knew one another. I was just new. So of course, eyes were on me. I noticed I looked different. Parents never really gave me a spiel on race. I think it was one of those things where it's kind of just like, you'll know when the time's right. A lot of things in my life, my parents didn't really sit me down and have a discussion about, really. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, you know better, you're smart enough, you watch TV, you read enough, you'll know. So I definitely never had a relationship like that with my parents. Yeah, so I think that was the first time that I realized that I was Black. It never really bothered me until maybe around when I started 4th grade. I had a teacher she just seemed to constantly be mean to me for no apparent reason. Being Haitian American, my parents were born and raised in Haiti. My parents pretty much instilled, strict, I'm not gonna really say strict. Oh yeah, my parents were strict in a sense. You were raised and taught to be respectful to your elders. You don't talk back, you don't roll your eyes or anything like that. So you never really misbehaved or act out of character, or otherwise you just get spanked or something. But so kind of with that sort of upbringing, I never really considered myself to be a bad kid. Like normal kids, I would get in trouble here and there, but I would never just be blatantly disrespectful. So of course those disciplines kind of carried on to my academic life. I always, listened to my teachers. I was always told to be respectful. I always listened to authority. I was actually really scared to get in trouble. I hated the idea of getting into trouble, just because I'd be scared of what my mom would say if I got into trouble with anybody. My 4th grade teacher, her name was Mrs. Thaw. She was probably the meanest teacher that I've ever had, and back then I never really realized it up until now, when I kind of look back and kind of just remember my experiences growing up in Livingston. It's kind of resonating with me now a little bit that Mrs. Thaw might have been maybe slightly racist. And the reason why I say that was just because for some reason she was always mean to me. I always seemed to get in trouble for the most minute things. Like I said, I never really was a bad kid. I never really got in trouble for anything. But for some reason, Mrs. Thaw always found a reason to keep me in from, just keep me in during recess. So all the other kids would go off to recess and play. And I was always stuck inside doing bookwork. The only other person who had darker skin was another classmate of mine who was Indian. And probably Mrs. Thaw just completely overlooked that because he was Indian. He wasn't black, probably in her eyes. But it was just, I was just picked on for the littlest things. I remember one time we were in class going over math problems, and I remember she read a solution to us, and she asked the class, she was like, okay, if you guys know the answer to this problem, raise your hand. And of course, like, I knew the answer to it, so just like she said, if you know the answer, raise your hand. So I raised my hand. But for some reason, out of every other kid, she picked me, and she's like, Dominique, do you even really know the answer, or are you just raising your hand because everybody else did? And she just always used to put me on the spot like that, and it always used to make me feel bad. And, you know, my mom, you know, bless her soul, like, she used to go out of her way to make Mrs. Thaw kind of just not be so angry with me. I wish I can have this conversation with her to ask, like, if she ever felt Mrs. Thaw was, you know, maybe prejudiced or something. Sending her, just going out of her way, sending her gifts, you know, like buying her like chocolates or, you know, cards that were saying thank you, have a great day, handwritten letters. And I was always getting sent home with like some sort of a notice saying that I got in trouble for something little. And for a while, I thought that I was actually like a bad kid. Like, I thought that there was something wrong with me because Mrs. Thaw always made me feel like there was. But no other teacher has ever made me feel that way. And it is just, I don't know. And, you know, now when I think about it this way, like, I'm just like, man, that's definitely a time where I've definitely experienced some sort of, hatred's not really the word. I don't know what to call it. I get animosity. That was the first time that I've ever felt any sort of animosity from someone of the opposite race, I guess. And I can't help but think that it had to have been my skin color that irritated her so much. No, I don't think I have any animosity towards them for not really preparing me. I wish I could actually know like how my parents went through it, but my parents were never really open with me and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I guess, you know, with the relationship that my parents and I have, or like the relationship that my father and I have, it's not really super open. So no, I don't know. I know now. You know what I mean? Now, is this something that I would pass along to my children? Yeah, absolutely. I would. I don't know. I think it's definitely something that needs to be passed on. Maybe they feel like it's not really the most comfortable conversation to have. Maybe they don't want to instill any sort of insecurities to their children about what they can't change. I mean, that's probably how I would interpret it. You know, it has me thinking, like, when's the right time to kind of even really talk to your kid about that? Me, I guess, should it have been when I was in third grade? Maybe. Did my mom try to have some sort of a little side conversation about that, or probably try to like indirectly let me know? I don't remember. She might have. Yeah, it doesn't. If she did, it definitely doesn't stick with me, or it's definitely something that I don't remember. Or it just might have been like a conversation that I just deemed insignificant at the time. I don't know. There were a lot of things where I felt like I did not have a lot of things in common with the white kids, especially like our upbringings were completely different. There were a lot of times where the white kids used to like annoy me with certain things. Like one day I'd wear my hair short, and then the next day they'd see like, you know, that I put braids in my hair or whatever, and then they just ask the dumbest questions like, oh, did you put like fertilizer in your hair or something? Like, your hair just grew overnight. It's like, is that your real hair? Go sit down, Becky. I don't have time for you right now. And I'm like, y'all don't understand. It's a black thing. But there were, you know, and these kids try to come off as like, you know, they're open. You know, they don't quote unquote see color, or they don't care, you know, if you're black or whatever. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like they like to hear about the lifestyle of being black without actually being black. Like, I remember every time there was like a new kid that came, a new black kid that came, and 9 times out of 10, a lot of the black kids that would come into the school that were new students, 9 times out of 10 they came from a predominantly black area. Like, for instance, one of my closest friends, she came from Irvington. Now, Irvington is hood. Irvington is hood. My family used to live in Irvington, and then they moved to Newark, and then, they moved to Livingston. But she came from Irvington, but, a lot of the white kids, gravitated towards her because she was, she was like this chick from the hood. She was like, fresh off the streets, black kid type thing or whatever. I don't know, they liked, being surrounded by the black kids that, had experiences in the hood, but God forbid the white kids had to go into the hood for one reason. They'd be scared out of their minds. Like, they wouldn't know what to do. They always used to say, oh, I will never go anywhere near Newark. Okay. They would just say like a lot of ignorant stuff like that. And it's just it used to really, really get on my nerves. It used to really get on my nerves. And what's actually pretty funny? It's probably like half of those kids probably live in Newark now, or in like one of the hood areas, quote unquote, whatever. But yeah, it was just kind of I don't know. It was just very annoying to watch them. They're just like, it was like a new toy, like a shiny new penny, but very weird. You get into high school, more black kids. And once again, all the black kids were integrated together. We kind of all stuck together. We all had very similar stories. Like, our parents moved out from poorer areas into a nicer suburban area. And our parents had very similar stories as to why they did it. They wanted the betterment of their kids' lives. They didn't want their kids to grow up in the same situations that they did. They wanted their kids to have a better chance, or like a better future, I guess. So a lot of them, pretty much had the same similar upbringings and the same similar stories. So in that sense, we all bonded together. And, sometimes, like, we would do things and the kids, the white kids just wouldn't understand. But it just, I don't know. We noticed that we were very different. And, there was a point in time where we actually, I think, I'm not going to say we tried to act like them, but just to try to, like I said, just kind of be on, like, a ground level, kind of try to just meet them halfway type thing. So there was a point in time where we tried, like, I'm not going to say extra hard, but we made sure to emphasize our speech, making sure that we're using proper grammar, over time, just kind of being surrounded by like a whole bunch of white kids or whatever, you kind of start to sound white, if you will, or you start to speak proper, and that's like another thing. There were some times where, like I, going to Livingston and living in Livingston or whatever, I would just be like, okay, yeah, like, I don't know, there were times where I was just like, oh, okay, I'm black, but I just want to be able to show you, like, I don't know, we can have, like, a common ground type thing. But then, like, when, hanging out with the black kids, I'm just like, man, I want to show that I'm proud to be black, too. Like, I can be, not both, but, like, I could just prove my worth, I guess. And in a sense of trying to, I guess when I was trying to prove my worth to the white kids, I felt like I was losing sense of being proud to be black. I'm 100% proud to be black now, though. I am. But I don't think that I would have gotten here if I didn't go through the experiences that I went through and growing up in Livingston and